So this is where I step back and study it and start refining the lines and determining the stagger of these points. I don't want this to look like it was just cut from a flat board, which it was. I don't like any memory, if you will, of its prior form. Now, I made a mistake here, and I've never done this before. I drilled straight through. I don't know what the heck, I was daydreaming or something, but whatever. It doesn't bother me. I'm going to find a way to incorporate that into the sculpture so it doesn't look amateur, which it is. Well, here I've completed the sanding. I sanded it to 600 grit. I find that some woods it's more beneficial to go higher, and some it's really not so beneficial. It sort of can be a waste of time. With this birch wood, 600 does all I need it to do. All the power sanding was done up to 150 grit, and then it was hand sanded to 150 grit. The way I get into all these really tight areas, which I don't know if this camera's picking it up, but it's very well finished. I want to leave no evidence of how this object was made. Leave it a mystery. Some people even ask at art shows, how do you bend the wood? It's kind of a silly question, but it's really also a compliment. You know, I want it to look that way, like it grew like this. These are the tools I use to get in there. This is a fine Multimaster. I bought this in 2003, and it's still works absolutely great. I know the new ones have a different clamp design that allows for these non-rotating arbor methods. Anyway, I make these tools just by either stamping out sheet metal or use the old blades, just grind the teeth off. This was an old putty knife. But anyway, I save different grades of sanding foam, or I'm sorry, foam rubber, and then I glue it to my tool body, and then I use spray adhesive to apply different grades of sandpaper. So like this tool, this is how I got into these areas, or actually more so this side in here. Tools like this is how I sand in there. This is 80 grit, so I'm gonna try to be careful not to touch the piece. But I power sanded to 150 and then begin hand sanding at 150 using these tools. This is like an old putty knife of some sort. I think it's from the graphic arts industry. I don't know, it's a pretty fine piece of steel. Whatever. It's got really good spring action. And this is how I can get into really tight areas and hold nice lines. That's just a butter knife. Very thin piece of foam rubber. Some kind of wood stick or whatever I got here. And then this is like yoga mat material, as it's more cushy. I've got piles of these things with different grades and thicknesses and shapes of foam depending on what kind of wood I'm working with, what kind of gaps I'm trying to get into, and then what's like ergonomically comfortable. So it's all done. This part's done. I'm about to sign it here with my cheap little wood burning pen, and then apply an Ilva sanding sealer. And then I'll sand it again at 600, 400, and then 600, and then blast it with compressed air here, and then go ahead and put the finish coat on it. So here's how I chose to have the base incorporate the through hole there, and I think it turned out great. I'm really happy with it. But you can see the details in the tight areas here, in the crevices and all the tight spaces. It's sanded very nicely. Let's walk it into the sunlight. Check this out. Very iridescent. Beautiful. I love it. So, somebody will own that. Want to see some other art? Look at this guy. Heading out to deliver it tonight after the show. Here's a cube. This is the first of a new series of aluminum and burl wood that I'm working on. It's getting some dust on it, but this is manzanita burl, and I poured molten aluminum into a mold. Here's another one. This is the second I've made now. Sold one at the last show. It's cherry wood burl and aluminum. And then it doesn't have a front or a back, and then I machine it. I've always hated minimalism. I don't like things that look easy to make. And although that's a minimalist shape, it's not easy to make. Here's a piece of bishop wood. This is a cookie slice of end grain. It's pretty hard stuff. It's from Southeast Asia. This one grew in Florida. They say it's an invasive species. I don't care. Makes beautiful art. You've probably seen some of these. They've been on my website for months. Here's a recent in my segmented ribbon series. This is made from a single flat board. So I just cut a bunch of triangles of compound angles or trapezoids and then glue them all back together. So the wood wasn't really much thicker than this at all. And so it's fun. It's a way to generate art with basically no waste. So here's Tasmanian rose myrtle. And this is Australian brown mallee burl.